I'm Victoria Wilshire, and this is Songtradr Happy Hour. A big hello to our audience. Thanks for joining us. I'm sure you'll have plenty of questions for our panel, so get them into the Q&A window or Facebook chat anytime during the session around the 40-minute mark. We'll try to get to as many of your questions as we can, of course. And by the way, thank you, Veronica Rios, for my little roses. I don't know if you can see those. Veronica, oh no, you can't see that, can you? What about if I, no, oh, this is bizarre. It's failing badly. Well, anyway, Veronica is part of the management team for Havoc from Mob Deep, who couldn't join us last time, unfortunately, but she still sent a gift. So thank you for my very cute, very tiny roses. All right, so now let's meet our guests. If a picture paints 1,000 words, our first guest has probably filled an entire library. And odds are you'd recognize at least some of her subjects because they are often high-profile personalities. This luminary behind the lens has a gift for capturing her subjects in a disarming, spontaneous and intimate light. She has been producing award-winning images for over 15 years. And if you take the plunge into her incredible pool of work, you would be treated to a photographic feast from such clients as Sony, Fender, Nike, Paramount, Rolling Stone, and Hulu. On the human side, she's brought out the Grohl in Dave, the Laser in Major, the Cuddy in Kid, and the Beck in Beck. She is also a filmmaker and released her first feature-length documentary in 2019 to critical acclaim. I'm so very pleased to welcome Pamela Littky. Hi, Pamela.
Hi.
Our second guest seems to have really made up for starting life in a small town outside of Toronto, Canada, with several world tours as the frontman for rock bands, and now balances a busy bi-coastal LA, New York existence. And how do you follow up touring in a rock band? By becoming one of the industry's most sought-after stylists, of course. To date, some of the names he's styled include Daniel Craig, Go 007, Trent Reznor, Jamie Foxx, Nick Jonas, Bruno Mars, Samuel L. Jackson, Depeche Mode, Willem Dafoe, and also for publications such as L'Officiel Homme, GQ, Rolling Stone, Interview, Vogue, Esquire, as well as multiple red carpets around the world. Please welcome the frontman who tears it up front of stage as well as back, Mark Holmes. Hello, Mark.
Hi there. That was a great introduction. I didn't realize.
I mean, these are impressive people. Come on.
I had no idea how to feel about it.
Okay, what's your rock star name, Mark?
My rock star name would probably just be Holmes.
Okay,
Just
very
Holmes.
nice. The
Holmes.
game's afoot. And now to our last guest. Jim Morrison was quoted as saying, "Some of the worst mistakes in my life were haircuts." He obviously didn't have our next guest in his Rolodex. While her canvas is hair, doesn't stop there. She also brings the magic through the art of makeup. From her extensive list of work over the past 20 years, the love story that's not actually a love story, 500 Days of Summer, through to the Franco double-header, The Disaster Artist. I love that movie. And recently, An American Pickle, starring 2 Seth Rogans. She's also worked with Foo Fighters, Zooey Deschanel, Sandy Newton, Elijah Wood, Frodo, and such brands as Prada, Adidas, and CoverGirl. She's also the creator of that swoopy teen fever-inducing Justin Bieber hairstyle. We are excited to say hi to Vanessa Price. Hello, Vanessa.
Hiya.
And I love it. We were just talking about this before we went on. You're so authentic right now because you are actually in...
I am in a makeup trailer, a hair and makeup trailer on set, working on a TV show right now, which I cannot say what, but that's what I'm doing. Doing some wigs today. I have a partner here.
I love it. Here's one we prepared earlier. All right, so our topic today is creating killer images, pro insights from celebrity stylists and photographers, and that's you guys. And we thought that this might be really useful for our community because given that mostly our artists, they would do a lot of shots themselves, producing them, setting them up, doing their own styling. So probably especially now, given that everyone's in lockdown, it'd be really nice to get some great tips from people who are doing this as a profession. And, you know, it's kind of cool to let us in on a few secrets, guys, maybe. So
Sure.
maybe we can just go back a little bit, almost to the beginning. Pamela, how about we start with you? Can you remember your first pro shot?
Not exactly the first pro one, but speaking to what you said, especially to the DIY, you know, I had a job, like a day job, before I became or decided to try to become a photographer. So I would set up shoots all the time on the weekends, and I really would do the styling, which is kind of laughable. But I mean, I was doing everything and you know, casting the people. I would get models from a modeling agency and do test shoots, you know, that a lot of people do. And then I kind of had a portfolio, and I also had a friend that managed bands, and I was like, just let me shoot your bands. I want to shoot musicians. So I started shooting a bunch of bands, and then I did have enough to kind of start sending my work out. I don't even know if I'm answering the right question right now, but I got a job. I started working for this tiny magazine called Venice Magazine, and they had me shoot Jane's Addiction, which was amazing, which I do think kind of launched the rest of everything, because I then went on tour with them and got a job with Entertainment Weekly doing this whole tour. But it all seemed to, it's like it happened really fast, but it's like I worked really hard for like 3 years leading up to that, getting that.
Yeah, you make it sound so easy though. Like if you didn't say it took you 3 years to get there, it's like, hey guys, this is.
It wasn't easy at all. It just is a lot of hard work, and it's still hard work every day. You know, it's fun and it's a blast, and it obviously we're lucky to do what we love, you know, to do. But it's you know, if it's your passion, it doesn't feel like work.
That's true. Unless it's like 100 degrees out, and then maybe we're all
Exactly, then
sweating.
you feel it.
Yeah. How about you, Mark? Because you were a rock star, and
That's debatable, but I did do something with music. Yes.
in fact, you're sitting right in front of your piano right now, right?
I am.
Oh,
It's just the best. It's just the best thing, so you know.
yeah, everyone guessed that song. But tell me then, when you went from being rock star to having an apprenticeship with a very renowned star. Yeah, and so tell me how that transitioned, and then what was your very first kind of pro job?
Yeah, so I mean, I dreamed of being a musician or a rock star, as you said, all my life, and went to school for it, studied music in college in Boston at Berklee College of Music. And then I toured for about 10 years, sleeping on couches all over North America. But, you know, then there came a point where I had to make a decision about whether or not I wanted to make money and live and have food and a bed to sleep in. And then, so I met a stylist from London, actually. His name is Mark Anthony Bradley. And I just accidentally sort of fell into it. There was one job that came about, and he said, well, you know, I know you're kind of in between where where you see yourself going in life with music and all that. Why don't you just come on this job and see if you like it? So I did, and that was the first job we ever did together. Was 99 Problems, Jay-Z. It was his job and I was assisting, but for me, that was this big, holy crap, you can make a living doing this. I could be a part of, you know, this cultural thing that's going on. You know, that was one of the biggest songs he had done to date, and I was a part of it. And so my just head got turned around and said, well, maybe I've been, you know, putting myself in a box about this music thing, and for so long, I need to just free myself up and be open to another career path. And so I it was that job, literally, it wasn't mine, that kind of opened the doors for me. And then, the rest is history. And then I just sort of started talking to other stylists and trying to get assisting jobs. And it was like a snowball effect, really, I think. And in terms of the first pro job, the first pro job that I did on my own was an artist named Modest Yahoo, who I'm not sure if you're familiar, but he did a music video with Mark Webb.
He was big, Mark.
Yeah, no, he was for sure big at that time. Yeah. And I think the art director had a crush on me or something, and she just was throwing me a bone, but I rose to the occasion, and it was just one of those moments where sometimes when you're just thrown into the den of wolves, you just rise to the occasion. And then she was suddenly like, okay, well, I guess I'm really doing this. I'm a stylist now.
Yeah, well, I'm going to come back to the den of wolves in a sec, but I want to go to Vanessa now. And, Pamela and Mark, you've given us two stories of how you got started. Like, you were with Jane's Addiction, and then it took off. And then you were with, Vanessa, can you give us a real kind of tortured, took you decades to get started story?
Unfortunately, well, I mean, sure, yes, no, but I worked in a salon for a period of time. I thought I wanted to be this like Beverly Hills hairstylist doing rich ladies. Hated it. So I quickly started working with a couple friends who were doing hair and makeup for fashion, editorial. And at the time, well, and even in my life now, majority of my friends are musicians. So it just kind of happened like, hey, I heard you're doing this now. Do you want to come over and do our hair for our video? Sure, grooming. And so it just snowballed. And at the time, I started working with an agent who just kind of took me under their wing and helped me negotiate, and just kind of went like that. Unfortunately, it's all about nepotism. It's easy to say it's not, but it's not. It's all about nepotism. It's all about it's about building your Rolodex and just getting your name out there.
It's interesting though, like to weave a thread through the three stories that we just illustrated, and maybe it's our age. I know a lot of people younger generations now set out to be a makeup artist or to be a photographer or to be a stylist, but it sounds like the three of us have that in common, where there was this naive sort of just stumbling around with that world, and it just kind of turned into
You're absolutely right. I think that's kind of one thing that happened for me. When I started out, I didn't know that this was a job. I didn't know that people made money doing photo shoots, doing movies, doing TV. Oh, right, duh. Of course there are hair people. Of course there are makeup people. But I didn't know. I grew up in Indiana. All I knew is that you cut hair, you go to the salon, you get a blowout. I didn't know it was this whole other life. And for me, it just took saying yes to all of the opportunities that were coming my way. And a lot of those opportunities were for no money. Sometimes I was making $100 a day. Sometimes I even remember doing shoots where I was getting paid in clothing. We'll give you a dress. And it was always some wacky dress or something I didn't even want anyway, but I just wanted the experience. I wanted to do hair and makeup. I wanted to keep going. I wanted to just experience it all. So it snowballed.
I wanted to just back up, speaking to that too. Yes, Jane's Addiction somehow did fall into my lap, but then it was like tiny little steps forward. It wasn't like Jane's Addiction and now I'm this like happening photographer. It was like the tiniest of baby steps and so many unpaid jobs just to build a portfolio. I don't even think I got paid for the Jane's Addiction shoot, but It didn't matter. That was your currency, like Jane's Addiction in my book meant something. And I understood that value. And that's a really important lesson too, because speaking of what Mark said too, I do think a lot of this younger generation is like, wait, they're not paying me? Well, forget it. Like, I'm not going to do that. It's just like, it's whatever's important to you and how you think you can build your business. But it was like Jane's Addiction and then like a million other steps. I just want to make that clear.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean,
feel like I'm
it took,
climbing.
you're absolutely right. I mean, it took me, I remember the first time I got like a big paycheck. I remember I think it was when I started working with the Foo Fighters. But mind you, I had met the Foo Fighters and I've been doing things as assisting. I was assisting all the time. And I remember my first big Foo Fighters paycheck and I was like, oh, what am I going to do with all this money? You know, I wasn't living like, you know,
But also, don't you
paycheck to
think,
paycheck.
I also think that there's something naively magical about back then when, like,
Did it for loving it.
yeah, you didn't really know what a makeup artist was, and Pamela, you were working at a magazine, but you liked to take pictures. And the same thing with the styling with me. It was just I didn't know it was a job. But and Vanessa, what you said was really great. It was the ability to say yes to an opportunity, how I look at just be open to something new. So it doesn't even necessarily apply just to our field, but just in life. You're just to be open to and have the courage to go on to something that you really don't know much about, but it fascinates you. So let me follow that thread,
It's not for everyone, that's for sure.
And I'm really glad that the conversation, and I'm being facetious, of course, it does take so much hard work. And to Vanessa's point, it takes a lot of building of relationships, so even if something doesn't work out, you can't take things personally. You can't, I mean, you might take it personally.
That's a huge lesson.
Yeah. The way that you act on those feelings really does dictate the next step. So absolutely.
Yeah, to add to that as well, someone once told me this and I firmly believe this, and this goes for any job. 85% of your job is whether or not people want to hang out with you. Whether or not they want you around and they want your energy, whatever that is, like your personality, your energy, and then the other 15% is what can you back up your actual job? Like, oh, okay, cool. So, I think that's also something to keep in mind. If you're an asshole, but you do amazing, hair, no one's going to want you around. No one's going to want to bring you on tour. No one's going to want to have you on a film set. No one's going to,
Yeah, it's true. It's hard working with assholes,
I kind of have a no asshole policy.
I'm still working on that one, but it's okay.
Try to aim for that.
So can we maybe go to for the people out there who potentially have never worked with a team of professionals such as yourselves? Perhaps they have a friend, or they've asked a photographer to help them take some shots, maybe for a band shot, for instance. What's the best way for them to approach if they wanted the whole shebang? A photographer, makeup, styling, hair. How does it start?
Communication, first of all, I think.
What'd you say?
Well, communication's important. I mean, I guess if you're talking about starting from scratch, actually reaching out to a photographer and all that, but let's assume you've already got that stuff together, it's communicating to the photographer, communicating to the makeup and the creatives, right?
Do you mean how to procure the people? How to find?
Yeah, do most jobs start with someone perhaps reaching out to you, Pamela, or the photographer and saying, this is the kind of shot I want, and now give me some recommendations on lighting, makeup, blah, blah, blah?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of ways to skin that cat, but it especially at the beginning, if that's what I think you're talking about, when you're just like kind of starting out and trying to build a team and put it together. I used to call a lot of the agencies that repped hair, makeup, and stylists, and I was like, who's young and hungry and wanting to build their book too? And I met a lot of artists that way too that I'm still friends with now, and we all kind of came up together in that way. But like all three of us were all building our book at some point way back in the day, and like we all said, it's like you're willing to do it, but the agents have a lead usually on like people who have contacted them that they don't necessarily rep yet, but they still would recommend, and someone that might be right for your shoot could come out of that.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then how about when you actually meet your subjects, how important is it for you to understand their personality to get the best out of the shot? And this could be Mark or Vanessa as well. What do you think?
Well, myself, I think it's incredibly important, and I can just say, because I've experienced, I've had, for as many shots have gone well, I've had a great number of them that haven't as well also. Do you know what I mean? And that is a testament to the idea that having a connection with whoever you're working with, I think is very important. But also, you know, like as a stylist, let's say somebody reaches out to me, I'll get an email. Hey, Mark, we've got this artist. We really want to work, you know, with you, and you know, let us know what you think. I made mistakes so many times by not doing the research and not checking out who it was. Like, I feel it's very important nowadays. Everything's online and everything's on Instagram and all that stuff. So I want to go and check out the music, first of all. I want to check out their Instagram and how they look in everyday life. I want to know what I'm getting into, because there's been times where I do that deep dive into what they sound like, what they look like, and I realize we probably wouldn't be the best fit together. You know what I mean? And so then at that point, I just say, you know, thank you so much. It's, you know, I can think, I have another stylist that I think might be work better with your thing, but it's just important that you get with like-minded people so that the synergy between the images and the styling and the Vanessa's makeup and hair and Pamela's, the way she shoots photography, it's important that that synergy is there, rather than just being so hungry you'll just take anybody. You know, I've had one artist that you would know of, actually, who's out there, and his manager reached out to me without doing any research on what I was about, because somebody said, well, Mark Holmes is great. And then they started telling me all this creative direction about, like, Lady Gaga this and da-da-da-da for a guy. And I asked him, I said, do you even know what my work looks like? He said, no, but I never checked it out, but you came highly recommended. I said, well, why don't you check out my work? And if you think it's appropriate, then come back to me. And I never heard from him again. Do you know what I mean? Because it just, we were never going to connect, and he should have done his research first.
Yeah. Some of my worst jobs I've ever done were with people who didn't know what I had to bring to the table.
Exactly.
So they expected me to go outside of my box and do something that I didn't feel comfortable with, or something that I didn't dig. You know, so I think that is super important, because also too, if you come to me and you're like, you know, my agent will come to me sometimes like, hey, we have this one. And I'm like, I'm not interested, but I can say, hey, you know who would be cool for this? So-and-so. Or, and sometimes that even goes for money. If it is, let's say, for instance, something, it's like, you know, hey, Vanessa, but they only have this much money. You know, I could be like, hey, but I have this girl who I know who's been working with me, and she would love to do it. She'd love to get her name out there and meet some people. So again, it's all about networking.
And one flip side that's actually a positive spin on that I find whenever I'm insecure, because we're artists, and we all, no matter how successful we become, we're still insecure about what we do. I find that sometimes I have to tell myself, if they really did the research and they came to me for what I do, then just rest assured that they came to you for what you do. So you get back into your, you know, what it is you're comfortable with. Because, like, no, they came to me, and so they do want my insight. They do want my expertise.
True. Yeah. And also, speaking to, I know, like, I like Mark and probably Vanessa too. Like, I listen to the music and I look them up, and even if it's maybe not necessarily my thing, I like the challenge of just putting my own spin on it and seeing what I can bring out of an artist that maybe they didn't necessarily ever do or think of before. And that's
Absolutely.
so fun and inspiring to get to do.
And so, like, I absolutely understand your points, and I think it's really important to get some magnificent work done. What do you say then to perhaps the artists and producers or any creatives out there who may just need to pay their rent. And so how do you get out of that cycle to the point where you can maybe be a little bit more selective about what you work on? What do you think?
I think it's a good point. I think you instantly made me think back, and I'm sure Pamela too. You know, at the very beginning, I was so hungry, I would take anything. I was taking everything I could do, you know, and
well, yeah, you're trying to be a working artist. I mean, and trying to eat.
And so I guess I wasn't able to refine until, you know, years and years down the road. So I retract half of what I said. It is, if you're hungry, you'll do anything. I mean, yeah.
Hang on, which half?
I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
I do remember it being a long time though, until I really got to start picking and choosing what I went to do. I mean, there were times, you know, I don't want to name any names of, you know, magazines and editorial jobs, but there was a lot of, but there were a lot of things that, yeah, like it sucked and I wasn't proud of it, but it allowed me to hone in my skills, learn how to be on a shoot, learn camera angles, learn what's happening. And then eventually, you know, with that, I started making all of my connections and networking and sort of then getting to pick and choose.
Has happened on those jobs too. It's like you go and you're on this set that you're like, oh my God, what am I doing here? And then you don't even know what kind of relationship could come out of that or who you meet. And then they bring you into something amazing. It's just like everything is an opportunity.
Absolutely.
In some way.
I love that. So try not to judge it and to understand that it's come to you for a certain reason. So
absolutely.
Yeah, no, I love that. So if we can segue then into the working with the subject and getting the best out of the subject. So Pamela, for you, I read on your bio, her portraits capture well-known subjects in seemingly unguarded moments. So I'm guessing that they know that you're there, and how do you get them to drop their guard so it feels so natural?
I mean, that question, there's, you know, that secret sauce in there that has to do with rapport and personality and connecting with a human being. And everybody's different and everyone connects in different ways. I have a sense of humor that I do think.
You?
Well,
you have a sense of humor?
Sometimes I do. And I really find I connect with musicians, especially, you know, with my humor. But it's like just building a rapport. And, you know, sometimes you have to build that rapport in 5 minutes and you have to be able to pull something out and keep it natural. And the unguardedness of it is just a style. I mean, that's always been, I like to keep it conversational and loose and not get too caught up in the pose or the technical, like the lighting aspect of it. I like to keep it very authentic seeming and real and organic and just find the magic that happens.
Yeah, and like you're really into it and engaged, right? And then that ties back into, if you're doing a job that you really love and you connect with, then it comes naturally, hopefully.
Totally. And I will say this, like, I love photography and shooting so much that it really excites me. And even on those jobs where it's like the worst job that you've ever done, it's still really fun. And I really still enjoy engaging with people. And so that's the part of photography that I love.
Yeah, okay. I love that point. And then, so maybe for you, Vanessa, what happens if you've done all the groundwork, you've connected with your subject, the management, the label, whatever, they've all signed off, you're doing your job, and then the subject says, what have you done? What have you done to my hair? Has that ever happened to you? And they say,
always.
Okay.
Always. And sometimes, well, no, not always. Okay, let me tell you about it. Often, it happens a lot. And sometimes that would happen in a day. You know, that everything could be great, and then all of a sudden something's happened. I think the biggest thing for me that it took me a minute to realize about my job is that so much of how I deal with other people is you have to be able to read people, you have to be able to be empathetic, you have to be able to read a room. And that goes a long way. Because sometimes something can happen in the middle of your shoot day where this person just had a meltdown about a breakup or whatever it could be, RBG dying or who knows, you know, and you all of a sudden, the only thing they can control in their life is their hair, their makeup, their clothes, what have you. They have lost control of everything else, but they can control that. So, you know, it can change just like that. So I think with that, it's a little bit of psychology sometimes. It's a little bit of reverse psychology sometimes. It's a little bit of just being patient and forgiving and finding a space. But also, you know, one thing that took me a long time to learn was to stay confident in all of it. There's a reason I'm there. There's a reason I've been brought there. I know what I'm talking about. And sometimes that doesn't click. Sometimes it's just that person's on their own level. But, you know, we're all human, and I think that the biggest thing is just to realize that there might be something else going on that you don't know about.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Perfect. Mark, what do you think? Hey, what happens when something's not really gelling with your subject?
Yeah, I mean, Vanessa brought up a lot of similar points that I would make. You know, reading a room is super important for all three of us for what we do. You know, I am a big planner, like, especially as it relates to clothes the night before. Usually I've got everything all planned out. But my process, I like to plan it out and then also leave room for what if my plan doesn't go the way I want it to go. I need to be able to backpedal and adapt. And that's just something really that over time, it takes a lot of time to be able to be in those experiences where things have gone wrong and you haven't been able to fix it. Like that, it's a very valuable experience, and it's happened to all of us, I'm sure. I know certainly for me, maybe even some jobs that we've been on together, who knows? But, you know, but it's important to be able to backpedal quick enough in your brain so you don't lose anybody, you know, and just say, no, I got this. Okay, this didn't work out. Let me just backpedal, go back into my toolbox and, you know, bring something else forward. And sometimes to a very surprising result, the thing that ends up happening after, you know, your bubble was burst because something wasn't working, the thing that ends up happening is you both discover, oh, actually that look is better than anything we had planned, you know, and those are those happy little accidents. You always have to have a little room left for fluidity, because that's the magic in creating art and image, I think. Like, have a plan, have this thing built that you plan on doing, but be able to, you know, pick it apart at a moment's notice. And if you're able to somehow weave in between those, then you'll probably end up having a successful career.
And having
I have to say, sorry. I agree with that wholeheartedly. I think one of the worst mistakes you can make is letting your ego get in the way and sticking to one thing. Like, I know this is how it's got to be. I've done this whole hairdo, you know, why would we want it any different? No, because it doesn't work like that. I've been on set before where the photographer was like, take her back, wash her hair. And that's what we had to do. And we did it, and we came back and did something different. And it turned out great, and it was awesome. And, you know, you just can't take it personally. And,
the ego is a big thing. Yeah,
huge. Flexible, and because like you guys are saying, that is so much of the time when the magic does happen. Unexpected, unpredictable, you don't know.
So then it's a really good time to maybe talk about the importance of what the three of you do together, because just to give you a little story of my own experience, I once got professional makeup done, and it was going to be a black and white shot, and by the time she finished, I felt like I looked like a panda. But then she said to me, oh, you've done black and white makeup before, haven't you? And I went, yes. But what I didn't realize back then was that she was making up for the end product and then not necessarily what I was seeing in the mirror. And maybe that's a really important point for those who haven't gone through this kind of professional level of styling and makeup and hair. Maybe Pamela, do you want to start with like how you actually work with someone like Mark and Vanessa to get the end result right?
Sure. Well, I will say there's also a lot of trust. I think that when you're working with a certain level, you know, if someone comes in and maybe they don't know, and there is some hand holding to explain why the makeup will be a certain way or why it's going to look, but you know, then they do have to trust that you know what you're doing. But working with it, it's like these guys I've now worked with for years and years, and it's like when we go into a shoot together, you know, we will have a conversation at the beginning, and then it's like I work with someone like Vanessa. She is like, you know, one of the best there is. She knows exactly what she's doing. We talk about what she's thinking, what I'm thinking, you know, same with Mark, and you know, we pull clothes or whatever, but I trust, you know, my team too. That's why they're there. And I love seeing like what they bring to the table and what their vision is, how we can all collaborate and bring it all together.
I think the trust thing is super important on all levels, certainly amongst us as creators of the image, but then also, you know, these young artists, specifically if we're speaking about music and musicians and artists, you know, who haven't been around a lot of the image makers, the photographers, stylists, etc. You know, that they can be very quick to be like, oh, well, I've never really worn anything like that, and I'm not comfortable with that. And, you know, it's like, oh, okay, cool. But here's the location that we're shooting it in, and you've got to imagine. So there's a lot of imagination that has to take place. But again, it comes back to putting that team together, whereas everybody trusts each other, and you sort of have to kind of band together as a team, you know, exude the confidence, but also just to put that person at ease. Like, you have to imagine that we know what we're doing. I mean, even if we don't, please imagine that we do. And you're in the best hands, and we want to make your thing succeed. We don't want, that's a very good point, I think, that to bring up to artists. We're in this to make your shoot succeed. We're not in it to make your shoot fail. We want your image to be the fucking best image ever. So it's hard to do sometimes, but let me do what I do. Let Pamela do what she does. Let Vanessa do what she does. And together, trust that we want to make this image epic. And I think a lot of younger musicians sometimes have a hard time freeing up that kind of control.
Yeah, and guys, if you don't hear the words, feel the passion of that. You're like, I believe you. I'd love you to style me. Vanessa, anything to add there? Would you agree?
No, I absolutely agree. I think, you know, we're all on the same team. We're all here for one reason and one reason only. You know, I'm not here to make my album cover. I'm here to make your album cover. Let's do this. So, yeah, I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, it's all about you, the artist, not me. No one's gonna look at an album cover and go, oh wow, you know. Sometimes, yes, they wonder who did the hair, but they're gonna look at it and be like, wow, that's awesome, that looks great.
I want to add one thing, which is, if there is an artist and they're not comfortable in, say, something that Mark is trying to get them to be in, or wear their hair a certain way that they're not used to, my take on that is always like, you need to feel so comfortable and exude that confidence so it reads, you know, on the other side of the camera. Because if you're feeling, it completely comes across if you are not feeling like you're the best version of yourself. So it's like, obviously there's times to acquiesce and they're not feeling this. So, you know, you pivot and go to this other direction where they maybe will feel more comfortable, because more than the styling, the wardrobe, or anything is how good they feel. That's like
absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, there have been so many times where we come in with one idea and it's like, we're going to do this. And then that person's not comfortable. It's like, I'm not going to make you do anything you don't want to do. And if you don't want me to cut your hair, I'm not going to cut your hair. But sometimes it works to your benefit. Just
right.
kidding.
Like,
but,
they have to be willing
but it's
to
true.
take that leap.
Yeah, but that's the thing too that comes with trust. And sometimes you can work with an artist for a couple times before you get the trust. So, okay, now we can actually do what I want to do and what I think is going to work best.
Yeah.
But I get it. I get it.
And that's a great point about the comfort too, the comfort factor. I mean, someone could be wearing a trash bag and they could look $1 million because they're feeling so good inside.
Yeah, they're like giving it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It comes down to like the initial conversations. I will always think that's why it's so important, whether it's mood boards or it's just conversations between everybody, have as much discussion before the actual thing happens, so you know the boundaries already. I've been on a lot of shoots where you don't have any direction, so you're like, well, I don't really know where to go with this or whatever, so I'm just going to do what I do, but no discussion has happened, and then it's just everybody gets there, nobody really knows what the plan is, and that's so oftentimes when it falls apart. Like Bjork did this, so there's a director's series where Chris Cunningham, the video director, was talking about how Bjork had commissioned him to do All Is Love, and he was so freaked out because they had an initial conversation of what Bjork wanted, and Bjork said, I chose you because I know what you do. This is what I'm thinking. We spoke for hours and hours, and then she just left him on his own.
Take the whole bag. Yeah.
Oh, work happens. Work happens.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. Sorry. I'm so sorry.
I love it. This is, like I said, it's so authentic. This is what happens on set, right?
Nope.
I'm never alone.
Really? What's happening?
Anyway, just to sum it up and then we can move on. But just the idea was that Bjork had chosen Chris, knew exactly whatever he brought to the table, she was going to love it. And he was so freaked out by the fact that she didn't communicate with him after they shot the video during the editing process for like 2 months. And he was so used to people micromanaging him, and he was saying, well, why didn't she? Then he became so nervous, but it ended up allowing him to do his best possible, execution of the project, because she chose him for what he did. And that was why that video was so successful, because she did the work, she had the conversations ahead of time.
Wonderful. Let's talk about some mistakes, shall we? What are some mistakes that you often see in photos, or that you've made yourselves perhaps and learned from them?
I would say for me, for my own work, it's just getting in your head and overthinking it and losing your confidence, which did happen mostly at the beginning again. But it's also when you just start overthinking things, it just becomes not as interesting of a photo to me. When you just let it kind of happen, obviously you have a plan and you work within those parameters and work within the plan, but to see what can happen, I just like to not overthink any part of it.
Yeah. Mark?
I would have to agree with that. I think, my mistakes happen in 2 places. One, I'm either overthinking it, which is often, that is where a lot of my mistakes, or 2, sometimes my ego, and I'd be the first to admit, there were, especially early on, I'd get really hot-headed if somebody didn't like something that I was doing, and I would take it personally. And the more and more the longer I do this, I realize that I can't take it personally. You just can't, you just have to say, okay, I gotta roll with the punches. I gotta adapt, or else I'm gonna be the asshole on set. No one likes assholes. Referencing the beginning when we started.
Yeah, except
no one likes an asshole.
Yeah, except their own. Yeah, but
True.
Yeah, and you can be a hothead on stage, perhaps when you're a front man.
Save it for the stage.
Yeah, people pay for that. How about you, Vanessa? Can you actually look at people's hair and makeup, like when you're out, and just know it, kind of pick it apart?
I can, but that's exhausting. No, I think, listen, I think what's so great about hair and makeup too is it's different for different people. And it really can change based on your subject. So I think, there's a time and a place for everything. And I think that's the one thing to keep in mind, is that everyone has their own personal aesthetic, their own personal style, their own personal lifestyle. And, it can work. What works for Pamela doesn't work for me. So, I think that's something to keep in mind. But back to the last question too, Mark was spot on. Like, your ego gets in the way. It's bad. That's probably my biggest mistake as well. And also not trusting myself and my instinct and having the confidence in my craft and what I do. But okay.
Yeah, no, I love that. And we have to get to some questions in a second, but maybe lastly, any of you can talk through perhaps what would you ask your subjects to either do or not do to get the best out of you? I mean, we've said a lot the other way, right? But, how do you guys work best? Pamela?
I mean, I guess just speaking of what I said earlier, I really try to keep a dialogue, and I always say to them at the outset, whatever you're not comfortable with, like, we're a team. You just tell me, because I'm never going to ask you to do something that is going to make you feel uncomfortable. And I think that just puts them at ease anyway. And then, you really need to have, again, so much trust, and just, they're giving a lot. Being on the other side of the camera, I could never do that. And I just have so much respect. I'm asking so much of a person, and like, when they're like really giving it back to me, I'm so appreciative of it. But I just think it's really, I keep it conversational and loose, and that's what I do.
Yeah. Vanessa, any do's or don'ts from people working with you?
I think, the most frustrating thing is when, you have to, it's hard, but it's necessary, is gaining trust. And I think when someone just kind of lets me do my thing, it's great. And all part of doing my thing is helping you and having that conversation, and, instead of just coming at me with an idea and being super closed-minded. Yeah, I think the other thing that really helps for me is part of the trust building is, I want people to know that I'm there for them. So if there is something that they need, please tell me, like, well, how can I help you? How can I make your day better? What do you need? Do you need me to spritz you with water every hour? But let's do it. I'm gonna spritz you with water every hour. Like, great. Because I think that also builds the trust of like, no, I really got you. I'm really not gonna make you look stupid. Like, I'm not in the business of making people look bad. It's actually quite the opposite. So I think, some people are willing to give that, some people aren't, but hey,
Yeah, I'd be happy for you to spritz me. How about you, Mark?
Yeah, I've got something. So there's a term that a lot of like old school music producers use when they talk to artists, musicians, and it's called demoitis. And the term is basically, don't get so attached to the demo that you can't open yourself up to what the final product is going to be. And I think that happens on photo shoots all the time with mood boards. The mood board gets sent out and everybody sees it. And then the client or the artist is like, well, where are those exact striped pants that were in the mood board? It's like, the mood board is a jump off point. That is the whole point why it's called mood, and it's not a specific map, So the thing to remember, I think, for everybody that's trying to do what we're doing and artists, we're all trying to create art together. And these images and the conversations we have are just elements of the soup we're putting in. And the idea is to stir up that pot. And then the thing that comes out shouldn't look like something that's already existed before. It should be this new thing that we created together, So don't get so attached to demoitis. That's my big don't.
I love it. And there's a connection to music as well. I saw what you did there. All right. So maybe we can go to some questions now. We have one from Facebook, Ethan Chetty. Hi, Ethan. I'm sorry, guys, on Facebook. We had a bit of trouble getting Facebook Live going, so apologies if you're on now. How difficult was it getting to where you are today? I know there are many in the world who have the same profession, but how hard did you work to get the opportunity not to get to your level, but to where you're comfortable in your field? Who wants to take that?
I'll start. I think how long, you can't even really quantify the years, because I still feel like I work my ass off every day. And it's not just taking photos. There's a business of photography, or a business to the art that we all do. And it's just knowing clients, knowing, marketing yourself, hustling, making those connections. And it all takes work. Also, perfecting your craft and working on that and trying new things and learning constantly. Like, I'm always just still even learning about other photographers that I love, and like researching and, pulling references. But so I think that it's a work in progress constantly. But if you're wanting to do it and to put in the work, other than, oh, it seems like it'd be fun to be a photographer, I think there's so much more to the business of it than that. But that's what I don't think a lot of people understand. But it is a lot of hard work.
Vanessa?
It's funny, like comfortable.
Be prepared to never be comfortable.
Right.
Exactly.
Exactly. I think that's the thing as a creative person, is you are never happy with what you're doing. Like, you're always striving to make it better. And it's like, ooh, because even when you go to bed at night after you did that really cool shoot, you're thinking, you're laying there, in your non-slumber, you know what, I could have done that. Next time I'm going to, maybe I'm going to just do this a little bit differently next time. So, but that's also great. And I think as a minute that you get comfortable and you start just like coming complacent, you're like, where's the fun in that? Like, you're not striving, you're never going to get any better. You're just cool being right here. Even now after 20 years, I'm still taking classes. I take hair classes all the time. I'm still constantly like learning new techniques, learning new things. I went to London recently, took a whole class. Like, it's and that's part of the fun in it too. You get to meet people in your community, you get to network again, so comfortable, monetarily comfortable. Yeah, I don't know that there's any comfort ever.
Yeah, define comfort, please.
Yeah, I'm like, comfort.
Yeah, $1 million. No. Mark?
Yeah, kind of the same idea that, I still wake up every single morning and I'm like, okay, who do I email, or who should I be reaching out to? There's never enough. Like, I've never done enough. I'm never completely satisfied with anything I've ever done. I have the same thoughts racing through my head, like, oh, if I would have done that stupid red shirt, or what I mean, just all these stupid things that race through your head. And I think that's just part of what feeds the drive to become an artist, whether it's music or photography or whatever. You sort of have to have that innately within you to be successful, and it's never done. There's very few artists that I know of who can ever say, I'm here, I'm done.
That's done.
Yeah.
Certainly not us. I know the two of you. We don't talk like that. So.
Yeah, no, and that's a true artist, I think. All right, so let's go to another question. This one's from Zoom. Erickson Becerra Castro Sa Munoz. That's a magnificent name.
Yes.
Hello, is it possible to create a professional look spending little? If so, some tips for that. Is there a good place, in brackets, website, magazine, etc., to search for references? Thank you.
Mark, you want to take that?
Oh, God.
You know the references.
I hate doing it though. I as much as I just preached about, mood boards and all that, it's one of the aspects of my job that I'm always asking other stylist friends, like, well, what sites do you use? And, you know, like we're all, and they say the same thing back to me. I don't know, what sites do you use? It's a mixture of just the references, I think. So I guess, is it a question where we get our references from? Is that
one of the questions?
I think the main part, hopefully Arson got right, they want to know, is it possible to create a pro look but not spend too much? I think they're just looking for some help.
Well, the answer is there's always an inexpensive way to do everything, and
absolutely,
the punk aesthetic has taught us anything. Do you know what I mean? It's that you can do everything inexpensively, but you have to think out of the box, I think, a lot of times.
I mean, equipment helps, but it's not everything. You know, you could take a cardboard disposable camera and have it look like a professional shoot. But I do think what does help with having it look professional is hair and makeup. I would never recommend doing a shoot without hair and makeup. I just think it's so important. And styling if you can. You know, sometimes you're doing a test and they can bring a few things to wear and, you know, you try to piece it together. But I do think that if you can get a person to style, even just with the person's own clothes, or have a person do actual hair.
Just as a voice sometimes, to just weigh in, even if it's the artist's own clothes. Like,
that's what I'm saying.
Just having a person
put it together. But I do think that having just those things, really, that's what makes it kind of the difference between professional looking and maybe not so professional.
But also, I would say never underestimate the brilliance of having a great idea. Like that OK Go video that, you know, from 15 years ago on the treadmills or whatever, that was a prime example of something that was very inexpensive to make in the time of making very inexpensive videos, but the idea was so simple and it was a brilliant idea. And that was a good example of it doesn't really matter. So when you don't have the resources, don't try to outstretch beyond your means. Get the fundamental ingredients to what it is that you have at your availability and make the best use of them. That's what I think.
Yep.
Vanessa?
You know, I mean, hair and makeup, it depends, because it's such a specific aesthetic depending on what you're going for. You know, for a lot of like rock bands, things like that, you know, to do it, it's kind of more like what you said, having what Mark had said, like having just someone there to just go, yes, no, no, yes, yes, you know, even if it's not someone who knows how to do hair and makeup, but someone who has an aesthetic and has a good sense of style and has good taste. You know, if you do happen to know someone who is a makeup artist or an aspiring makeup artist or hairstylist who works in a salon, absolutely bring them on, have them give you a fresh trim, some fast hair, and, you know, bring their curling iron or what have you, because that's gonna go a long way. I think one of the main things is it's really hard to do hair and makeup on yourself. It really is hard. I don't do my own hair and makeup. Hell no, it's too hard, because we don't see ourselves in the way that other people see us. So when having someone else's eyes on you, accentuating your assets, then absolutely you want that.
Yeah, and that's a good point, isn't it? However, now, maybe this is a good time to ask this other question. Jordan Mills from Zoom has said, how has the pandemic affected your work? Because I'm assuming that lots of people can't really access people in person, you know?
How much time do we have to answer that?
Yeah, well, we have to finish.
No, I mean,
yeah. Oh, yeah, right. Okay. I'm not the only one who can be facetious. That's awesome.
Vanessa's on set right now. We can ask her.
I am. It's changed it in a lot of ways. Where do I start? Right now I'm not wearing any of my PPE, but right now on a daily basis, I have to wear a mask. And then with my mask, I have to wear either goggles or a shield on top of that. And then I also have to wear like a medical grade lab coat, or I don't have any here with me, surgical smocks as well. Some people opt to use gloves. I personally just am a frequent hand washer. But in between we don't do as many people as we normally would do. So now I typically look after 1 or 2 people. I have to sanitize in between. I can no longer have the same bag of products for multiple people. Every person has their own separate equipment and gear. So it's very expensive and it takes a lot longer to do.
It's more preparation time, right?
A lot more preparation time, a lot more takedown time. You know, I'm coming earlier in the morning now to clean every night. In between every person, I have to clean my station, my chair, the whole thing. So it is a lot of work.
So I would say that you have to put in a lot more thought into everything. So would you think, does that, in your opinion, does that detract from your creative process?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's been, absolutely. I think now, because we've been shooting now for about 6 weeks, we've kind of gotten into more of a groove, which is great. But initially it was the creativity was gone. It was just, how do we do this? Because then we also still have someone knocking on the door. How much longer? How much longer? Can we have them?
They're just the same way they were 2 years ago. The second AD is still like, where are we at?
So
has anyone got COVID on your set or gotten it?
No, actually we had a couple false positives, but no one has tested positive for COVID as of yet.
And how many times have you been tested, Vanessa?
In the last 30 days, I have been tested 20 times. All negative. They get some of our testers, they get real far in there.
Oh, yeah.
Some just it's a weird, interesting world. But the thing is, as a hairstylist and makeup artist, I'm trained in sanitation. I'm licensed by the state of California in sanitation. So a lot of these protocols are normal things that we were already doing. But now it's very careful, and it is very much more mindful. Some of it is second nature to me, but a lot of it is very much compartmentalizing, you know, and things are slower, which that's the hardest thing I think for me. It's very frustrating because, but I can just do that right now. No, you can't. So that's tough.
Okay. Well, I think we have time for one more. You guys okay? One more question?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. From Zoom, we have someone who's asking, how do you strike a balance between current stylistic trends and your personal approach?
I guess that's a stylist question, although I thought Pamela, we should weigh in on something with her too. But it's hard. I mean, I think when you're a stylist, yeah, your instincts are always to do what you think looks great on everybody. But if you want to succeed in the industry, you have to realize that you can't just get by specifically only doing your style, because there's not enough work out there for just what it is you do. And it harks back to something Pamela said near the beginning, where, you know, sometimes the challenge does arrive when something is a little bit out of your wheelhouse. And so you're faced to either rise to the occasion of thinking of another way to handle it, or doing it by resting on your laurels. And I know specifically for me as a stylist, I'm constantly challenged by new trends that are coming along. And at first there's a period of like, what is going on with that trend? Like that wide leg trouser kind of thing, or whatever it is. And then sometimes if I see it enough times, I realize, well, how do I turn that into what I do? And so you sort of develop your own version of this trend. So you're always bringing yourself into everything, but you're constantly taking this new input that you're seeing, these new references, this new styling trends, it's new photography that you're seeing, it's inspiring you, but you're taking what you have in the equation, again, adding to that soup and stirring it up. So, you know, you become somebody I'm not duplicating this trend that I'm seeing. I'm bringing what I'm already bringing to the table in addition to the new trend, and adding something new to the equation. I don't know if that answers your question, but that's how I would take it.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. What about you, Vanessa?
Same. I right along there with Mark. I think, I think as just who I am as a person, I have my own sense of style and what I think looks good. And so a lot of times I see things happening, trends with hair, like beach waves, for instance. It's such a trend, and every job wants beach waves, beach waves, beach waves, beach waves. But then how do I make that mine? Well, am I going to do it? I'm going to wrap the iron like this, or I'm going to leave these parts out. Just making it my own. Yeah, so I think, but that's also too, adopting new trends into your wheelhouse is how you stay current. It's how you keep up. It's how you get hired. Because for instance, if I was cutting the beaver cut still now, like, I don't think there'd be too many takers. So you do have to, adopt those things and, learn everything you can and take it all in. I'm constantly looking at what's happening, what's new, how, what's exciting, because it's exciting. Otherwise, you're kind of bored anyway. I'd get bored with doing the same thing all the time.
Yeah. And Pamela, would you like to have the last word on this one?
Yeah, I guess in terms of actually as being a commercial photographer, so a lot of times there's a creative team behind what you're doing, and they kind of dictate what they're wanting to do, but they hire you for your style and to bring out, whatever they're trying to make their vision come alive.
And
so it's like you do need to collaborate with them, but you also are there for your own spin on it and what you think, is the best way to solve whatever it's going to be.
Yeah, and I love that. They're great words, especially for all creatives out there, not just the ones in the image business.
For sure.
Yeah, artists in music can apply everything, well, a lot of what you guys have said today to their own approach to their art, I think. Well, I can't believe it. We've actually done more than an hour. That actually went like lightning, didn't it? And we can let Vanessa get back to her wigs, I think.
They're not going anywhere.
Yeah. So Pamela, Mark, and Vanessa, thank you so much. The three of you are awesome. I appreciate your time today. And thank you to our audience in here and out there. We hope you found this happy hour valuable and enjoyable. You'll be able to view the full session on YouTube tomorrow. Look out for a link in the webinar follow-up email or the post on our social channels. And let us know in the comments what you would like us to talk about on these happy hours. Coming up on the next episode, elevating music and art with creative excellence. What does that mean? Well, our guests have taken things to a whole other level. And I'm talking someone who's produced a gold record of Earth's most iconic sounds and sent it into space for the possibility.
Yeah, that's cool.
I know, amazing, right? For the possibility of communicating with other life. So mind boggles. So everyone, be kind to each other, and we'll see you in 2 weeks for our next happy hour. Cheers.